But on the strategic side, the direct value is so much bigger because it's immediate. Yeah? It's like you can break down the concept in one day and work it out. And you have it and you save yourself and your organization weeks of unclarity, insecurity, unhappiness with employees. So this low-hanging fruit is on the strategic side.
Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast, powered by Siemens. And now your host, Niall Sullivan.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Trend Detection Podcast. I'm really pleased to be joined once again by one of our regulars, probably towards the top of the list of our regulars because he is on quite often. And we're really pleased to welcome back Peter Schopf. And for those who know, we sort of title this sort of recurring series as IoT Time, which keeps the discussion quite broad. It means we can pick the topics we want. We don't do a lot of prep for this podcast. We just tend to make it very high-level discussion on Peter's thoughts on sort of the latest and upcoming sort of trends from his point of view, and meeting lots of customers, meeting lots of industry experts. So he can bring a lot to the table. I don't want to ask you to do another intro to yourself, Peter, but maybe a one-liner in terms for new listeners, in case they don't know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. Just from my background, maybe I've been a long-term Siemens employee and manager, and then I have started my own company, and it's kind of a consulting, training, and implementation company focused on generative AI as such, but also with a broader scale of digital transformation. And I'm applying all the learnings I have done with Siemens. We've learned a lot, and that was very good in many aspects, and tried to apply these learnings to other companies as well, helping also, still being in touch with Siemens, doing trainings there as well for certain aspects. And AI, I believe, will be one of the key transforming technologies now going forward. You might hear it in my voice. I'm recovering a little bit from a flu. I had just hit on the last days of winter, just on the brisk of spring. But yeah, I think it still works, and it's understandable.
Yeah. Well, let's see if you can last to the end of the podcast, Peter. Hopefully your voice holds out for the podcast. But I guess for today's topic, like I said, we don't come in with a big plan, but I think today it's fair to say we're going to focus very closely on ChatGPT and this sort of trend and growing trends, and talk of agents as well. And maybe we can sort of explain sort of what that means, and everyone knows what maybe the term agent, but in this context of sort of ChatGPT and the progress being made. And then we're going to talk about sort of a new, think about ChatGPT and these use cases in a slightly different way. It's not just on an operations level, but maybe more strategically. So, I mean, where would you like to start, Peter? I mean, we could start, as I mentioned, the sort of agent side of things. So what does that mean, first of all, when we say an agent versus ChatGPT, for example?
Yeah, the other day I had a keynote about how intelligent is ChatGPT, which is interesting. I mean, ChatGPT is just the interface basically in front of some AI models, generative AI models. And to understand, to have this discussion, you can be very philosophical about that, because what is intelligence? I mean, that's already a philosophical discussion to have all by itself. And then, can AIs be intelligent? And what does intelligence mean? One definition of intelligence is basically that it has the capability to perceive, reason, learn, and act, like these four elements. And especially the acting part, then you talk about agents, if you do that right. But let's for the moment talk about generative AI as such, and then we get to the agent part afterwards. Because, what can it do? Like, it's funny to say basically, well, generative AI is not intelligence, because, it's already in the name, right? Artificial intelligence. It's another intelligence that our intelligence, that's for sure. However, people, Jan LeCun, for example, Meta's lead developer for AI, he says LLMs are stupid, very stupid, more stupid than like 4-year-old children. While on the other side, they solve puzzles on PhD level. Yeah, it's very intelligent on the one hand side, and so these different positions of highly respectable people leave the broad public basically a little bit confused. Yeah, what is it now? Is it stupid or not? And I believe you can look at it from different angles. For example, when you just look at the large language model, yes, it just predicts next tokens. So this for itself seems not very intelligent. It does not have this world model view. And you need a world model. What is a world model? It's kind of how physics are behaving in the world, because otherwise you keep misunderstanding, misinterpreting things that happen in the world, and it will be very challenging for such a large language model that just reads basically to really understand what it is to do. For example, when you plan a trip, how long it takes you, what are the challenges that you encounter when you put your luggage into a cab and you have too much luggage maybe for the plane. Many of those things can be coordinated with like the description of kilograms and things, and what is allowed, what is not. But like this word model, especially in robotics and things where you really need to act in a physical environment, this is a specialty which is not yet there, but many companies are working on. Now, I believe that you need to look at AI in a kind of distributed way, that you have different modules. Like large language models are just one module, and you can transfer that to our brain. When you look at our brain has also different modules, basically. The prefrontal cortex, limbic system, and else, yeah? And they have different tasks. And you have your language center in your brain, and you have your memory center, your reasoning center. And for future AIs, that will be very similar. You have these distributed systems, and a large language model is basically just the language model, could be, and maybe these new AI systems, the reasoning models, maybe they are used for reasoning. And then you have another AI, which is the simulation engine, which can be used for physics simulation. And this interplay of different models, this mixture of experts, that's then going to be a real artificial intelligence. And that's going to be much more capable. And also, currently they say, well, large language models don't have agency. They don't want to do anything, right? You need to push them to do something. You need to give them a task or a prompt. But it's actually very easy to provide that. You just need a little script which just gives impulses every couple of seconds. Do something, do something, do something. Yeah, with maybe a target. Do something too. And then the target is very important.
What it sort of seems to me is so we're still relatively, say that word carefully, like early in the sort of development and understanding of what sort of ChatGPT can do. I think that's really interesting what you said about sort of like different parts of the brain focused on different things. But do you think that's why in some areas there's sort of a misunderstanding that, you mentioned the example where someone thinks it's sort of quite stupid and immature, type of thing. But is that what sort of contributes to there being a sort of a misunderstanding about, the potential of it? Because they just, that some expectations are really high, and if it doesn't meet those, then automatically, no, it's just not very good, even though, it's maybe just not quite there yet. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's funny. Like the expectations are on the one hand very high, and also then the conviction that these things are performant and can do something is low. Yeah? So there's always this discrepancy. And for example, the agent discussion, let's go to that. Like what is an agent and how you can define them? There are different terms around. Yeah, they're like copilot, agent, assistant. So what's the difference? I have one four-square map in mind, which I believe is very helpful. Not everybody has the same terminology and mapping. Yeah, be careful about that. But just how you can conceptually perceive that is that with these four square maps, you have one element which is automation. Yeah, how much is automated when you use that AI system? And the other one is integration. How much is it integrated into your systems, into your tools and tasks and possibilities? And if it's low automation and low integration, you have an assistant. That would be kind of a typical LLM. It can be an assistant. You ask it something, it gives you something back. Very helpful. And actually, that's where people should start. That's where companies should start. The agentic one, on the other side, actually, it's the holy grail, basically, and we are not yet there. Yeah, an agent, a real agent, if you're not, I mean, people call everything, all kinds of AI systems, they call agents already. But the real agents, they would have very high autonomy and very high integration into your systems. And then you really would give them a task and they would go off and use all kinds of different tools, because tool usage is one of the differentiating aspects and traits of agents. They would be able to write emails. They would be able to access the internet and do search. They would be able to access your systems, potentially change parameters when you are in an industrial environment. And that's obviously one of the later use cases you should think of. But this high integration and high automation at the same time is very challenging, what you can imagine. And therefore, companies that immediately jump to like an agentic approach very often fail or don't meet the expectations. And then you have these other kind of two squares, basically. If you have high integration into your systems, but low automation, that's kind of the Copilot. Microsoft Copilot 365, for example, as one of those classical ones. They are very good integrated into your systems. Yeah, they integrated in PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Teams, and they can access the SharePoint, drives, your emails in your Outlook. So that's a very integrated system, but it's not very automated yet. Yeah, you can give tasks. There's the Copilot Studio, which provides a lot of possibilities, but it's still, I think, challenging to set up something that is really highly automated. And well, this is one aspect. So the Copilot, it's also not an agent, but again, Microsoft already calls its Copilot also agents. Yeah, so that the terminology is something. And if you have something which is not integrated into your system but highly autonomous, you have like an autopilot. Now, for example, your car in the future, I'm very much looking forward to that. It's not integrated into your overall kind of environment, into your mailbox and else, but it can drive by itself. Yeah, and that's for example, as one specific task which can perform very well, but without being able to kind of addressing complex topics. It's very specific on one task, like driving or answering emails for a specific topic or so. Yeah, and having these mapping in mind, and also being aware that you shouldn't start with agents. Yeah, you should start with assistants. I think that is important. We have a very nicely running project with E.ON, a big German energy company, where we exactly play that spot, the assistant one, where we provide people for their job exactly what they need in order to be better. You know, it's basically a prompt template. When they enter their daily tasks, and they push a button, behind the button is a very complex prompt. And they don't need to write that prompt time and time again. It's just behind the button, but personalized on their daily tasks. And they love it. Yeah, so I've been involved in many digitalization projects, but I hardly had one where there was such a pull from the people that they want to use the tool. We're in pilot stage and we keep getting requests for licenses from all over. So that's I believe generative AI in that space is very powerful already now, if you do it right. Yeah, we had this discussion also the other day. Not only technology, but also you need to look at the processes. You need to look at the people, the trainings, and change management, and so. But then the assistant space is very, very already now very good to address.
Yes, there's one word, and that's really positive to hear, because, like I said, being part of Siemens, you hear about lots of different projects maybe don't take off. So it's really great to hear that the pulls actually come from the customer. We need to do more. We need to push forward. And so the adoption piece is so important. So and like I said, maybe you're overcoming that by not trying to do too much too soon. I guess, is that the key to adoption? Or what would you say is sort of the key to adopting sort of Gen AI technology?
There's this big elephant in the room, which is kind of, will AI take my job? And to address that, and agents have that potential. Yeah, they are very well integrated. They can do lots of tasks, very autonomous. So if you come around with an agent project, people will be careful, especially when they're not involved yet with AI and don't know what it is and stuff. Assistants, they don't come around like that because they cannot be autonomous. They really support the people in their daily work, and it brings them direct benefits. It's very easy actually to bring benefits, like in things like report generation, or kind of having a corporate identity, a specific tone of voice which you want to employ. These AI models are fantastic. Or also to, for example, internal reporting, internal management emails, or something like this. People spend lots and lots of time trying to do it right. And still, the managers very often are very unhappy about what they receive. So them information missing, it's not very well structured. And so this, to streamline those daily communications, everybody directly sees the benefit. And if you leave them open room, and if you take them along on the journey, get their feedback, then really, I think that's nicely done. So it's involvement, engagement, it's reducing fear by giving trainings. We did, for example, Promptathon, which is a very fun way of not an AI training where people are trained to say, well, this is how it's done. But the Promptathon is really, it's kind of this art word. Yeah, it's come from hackathons, which hackers know very well. Hacker coders sit there and solve a problem, often during a weekend or something, or several days. That's why this marathon approach kind of came in. So a hackathon, and prompting, everybody can do. Yeah, it's just speech. And therefore, Promptathon is designed to have specific challenges which will be addressed. Challenges from their daily work. And they directly perceive the value of that, especially when you have a training. And people who are by themselves at the beginning have always the frustration with working with AI, because you need to be very specific on the context, on the objectives. You need to learn that. That's not on your first try. And when people are in teams addressing a challenge, you overcome that frustration easily, because people help each other. You have the time allocated, and so these Promptathon formats are a very, very nice way of getting started. And if you combine that with tools that are then dedicated for their daily work and environment, that seems to be a very nice working mixture.
I guess it'd be interesting, Peter, to get your view on this idea of, when you implement a technology like ChatGPT, it maybe doesn't work perfectly. Like every technology, it doesn't work perfectly all the time. But what might happen is, there's less trust in it, and then it's harder to get more people engaged and on board and using it, because they're like, well, I tried it once and it didn't, it didn't quite work out. And I mention this because from a Senseye point of view, I interviewed one of our delivery colleagues, who delivers, implements the product with customers, and a customer was actually almost afraid to feedback that, it didn't, it didn't quite work as intended, and they're a bit worried about feeding that back. But it's actually, no, that's good. We need to know this so then we can improve it, tweak it, and whatever. So I guess it's that sort of mindset, that people get in. Bad feedback is good, but don't use it as a way to sort of dismiss the technology completely.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the feedback mechanism is important also for these prompt templates. You need to work on these prompts that they directly fit exactly what the people need. And that's not a one-time effort. Yeah, this is kind of a continuous evaluation of the prompt. But I think when you couple experts and the people using it, it can be quite a fruitful and practical process. So that works actually quite well. But it's also how you phrase it, because when we have, for example, when I do trainings or workshops, I always also show a picture where I show a calculator and a working student. And I say, hey, the mistake that we do is that we look at AI like a calculator, kind of a deterministic machine. And it's just not. It's not a deterministic machine like a calculator where you put in a simple equation and you always get the same answer. It's rather like a working student, kind of a guy coming from university, being very, very clever, but having no clue about your context and your environment. And if you have that approach in mind, you take much more time explaining the context, which is important. The more context you give the AI, the better it is. And also when this working student picture also helps people that use AI frequently already. Why? Because if you then consider that each chat you have can be a different working student, then you structure your chats differently. And because some also kind of in a beginner, not yet advanced stage, they use GPT each time a new chat. And if they have the same problem again, they have still a new chat. But you can find chats to address specific problems time and time again. And so this chat, your working student basically has more context. He knows what you want, and he provides much better results. And also for working student, things like he comes back, provides you with the response, and you say, well, that was nice, but it's not yet what I wanted. Please do this and this again, and come back again later. And this is how you need to work with an AI. And there's also one also key theme that I'm currently trying to convince and to express to people to understand. If you use generative AI for operational topics, there are challenges which are difficult to overcome because it does hallucinate. And there's a big gap for strategic applications. So let's look first at the operational topics for a moment, and then the strategic possibilities. Operational, you can have three elements or three levels basically. One is so like daily tasks, which is good, helpful. Summarize the email, rewrite the email, and things like that, or these prompt templates. So that's actually quite nice. But you need to understand where it works and where it does not. For example, when you want to analyze contracts, you want to be very, very sure that whatever the AI tells you is what is really written in those contracts. Especially when you take several contracts, that's challenging. And sometimes the AI mixes things up and else. And if you cannot rely on the result that you get, you need to go into the contract and read it yourself. So there's not the big benefit here. Or the other day I heard the story of somebody who had kind of a list of materials, and he transformed the list of materials with the AI in another format, and suddenly one position was missing. You cannot have that in a project where suddenly a position is missing in your list of materials that you want to procure. So you need to be very reliable on operational topics. And therefore, it's often people are kind of frustrated, a little bit disappointed. Also, other levels would be the processes side, where you have really frequent processes that are managed by the AI. So there you go more and more into the agentic world. It's kind of a continuum. And also on the operational side, customer solutions, what you have now discussed with Senseye, that you have a customer-facing solution. You want to have it very reliable, actually, that your customers trust it, because they are also not aware yet that it's not a calculator, but a working student kind of thing. So therefore, companies focus very strongly, in my experience currently, on operational implementations. And what they completely lack are the strategic ones.
Why is there such a focus on operational? Is it just the use cases sort of jump out a bit more obvious? Maybe because you mentioned to do with rephrasing emails and things like that. It sort of jumps out that there's some really obvious things here. But is that why? And it's because strategic, I guess, lends itself to there being more of a vision, a broader vision for the app implementation.
I think there are two key topics. One is kind of the dynamic of the development. It's so fast, the development. And actually the strategic approach, from my point of view, is possible only since there are reasoning models. And that's, it's half a year or it's kind of 8 months when O1 from OpenAI came out, the first reasoning model. Just to explain quickly, that basically, when you make it very simple, in Gen AI currently two kinds of models. The ones which answer immediately, kind of when you know Daniel Kahneman, you could say the system one thinking, immediate ad hoc answers, not thinking very precisely. And then you have the system two models. Daniel Kahneman, again, famous Nobel Prize winner, but you need to know the book here for that. But the system two models, the reasoning models, they take time. They reflect. That's how people think as well. We have our system one. We answer very ad hoc is a gut feeling kind of thing. And when we are confronted with a challenging question, we take time, we reflect, but it takes more energy. And that's the same with AI. So the reasoning models, they take much more time, they take more energy. And for example, DeepSeek R1 is one of those reasoning models. Now Gemini has one as well. Yeah, so but these are very new, and they are very strong in reasoning, understanding, reflecting, structuring, and so this is kind of new. And managers especially didn't yet probably fully comprehend what that means, because when you look at the strategic side, you can have also, again, three levels. For example, you have the program level, you have the strategy level, and you have the cultural level. So on the program level, I mean, especially when you come from a big corporation, you have all the time, you have restructurings. And that's kind of always when people say, oh, there's a restructuring going on, the next months we will be busy with ourselves. Then you get this feeling of what that means. Yeah, or if you buy a company, or if also other programs like generative AI kind of introduction into your company or else. Yeah, so it's very time consuming. And these reasoning models are amazing in breaking that down. Yeah, so the way I do it, and unfortunately, like, I do have my network and it's all great, but it's difficult to get to those people like the CEOs, because I do that currently for free, to have really a discussion. 1 hour, half an hour is enough. Yeah, to have like an interview, describe your situation, describe your program. Let's put it in, for example, O1 Pro. It costs 200 euros a month, but it's really, really good. And it breaks down everything. It first provides a list of questions of what you need to think about. And in a reorganization, that's very strong. Just the list of questions has a huge value in itself, because that brings people to discuss, okay, how do we do this? How do we do that? And then obviously when you answer these questions, just as much as you can, it provides you a full-flown first draft of a breakdown of how this program can look like. And now the difference to the operational side is that obviously you will not take this one-to-one, but it will be a great start. And you can take those elements that are interesting and good for you, and you can break down every element again. For example, it says, well, the software system needs to be updated. One element is to have the legacy systems analyzed. Then you, for example, say, okay, this is a good point. How do I analyze the legacy systems? And then it breaks that down again. And then you say, oh, okay, that is an interesting point. I need to do, I don't know, for example, a data flow mapping or something. And then it says, well, how do I do a data flow mapping? And then it breaks that down again. And so you can be from a high level to a low level, breaking it down step by step, so that in very short time, you have a full-fledged structure from top level to bottom level. If you want to do that now, you either spend weeks, months, or you hire a very, very expensive consulting company that is active for quite some time. And this is now all just prompting, and that this understanding is just not there yet. And that's just on a program level, strategy level, breaking down targets. And the cultural level is actually, I believe, one of the most interesting ones, where I want to position myself as a thought leader, because like bringing together culture and technology, from my point of view, is very powerful. But yeah, the understanding, unfortunately, is not yet there, especially in Europe, how important culture is, and that you should and need to invest in it. But yeah, step by step.
And what I thought was interesting, I know it's only one small element of what you were saying there, Peter, but the use case in terms of, when you use some of this technology, you're looking for answers, but actually you can actually just look for the questions to get, for then you to figure out the answer, which actually, I know it's a very small point, but it's just, it should make people think about how they actually use this technology. It's not always, and we talked about it before, about getting that point. It's not a calculator. Great analogy, by the way. It's not a calculator where it will give an exact output, but it can give you questions, then help you think of what you want, and maybe you can then feed it back. You mentioned Gemini and things like that. I use that in my everyday life. Other ones available, of course, but and I love that sort of back and forth, in terms of like search and things like that. So I just thought it was an interesting point to pull out of that.
And that brings me back, because I said there are two reasons. One is the dynamic of the development, that people are just not aware yet of these possibilities, and the other one is the training of actually the management. Yeah, because currently when we do trainings, most of the time it's kind of how I do prompting, kind of with operational topics. Yeah, summarize my emails and things like that. Yeah, and it's most of the time for the normal employees. Most of the time we did not have managers in our trainings, and I was surprised about that. Why are the managers not here? Yeah, they need to learn that as well. So somehow they potentially think, well, maybe I'm already doing that, or I have the support I need from my people, so I don't need to do it. But then I realized that for the strategic approach, you need dedicated manager trainings, that they understand how to do that for their strategic needs. So that's one of the elements we now offer. Obviously, is that we have dedicated manager trainings that then is not less focus on training, more focus on problem solution. Yeah, that you have kind of this promptathon style, that we really address the problem as such, and in very short time they have solved their program problem which they have in front of them, and they've learned how to use AI. And this is, I think, also something that will be more and more now broadly used in the industry, in order for people to be aware of that.
Yeah, and of course, how people approach and use these tools. I mean, the overarching thing is this is all still relative. I'll use that word again, relatively new. So people are still adjusting slightly new ways of working. It's like any technology, isn't it? You don't just immediately get it, but it takes time to adopt that and bring it into your day-to-day sort of workflow and processes.
Yeah, and it's also the time perspective. It's also something that I'm very keen about to talk about, because on the operational side you also need the time, and it's good to invest the time, start now, which you all the time start now, and then it will develop. But on the strategic side, the direct value is so much bigger because it's immediate. It's like you can break down the concept in one day and work it out, and you have it, and you save yourself and your organization weeks of unclarity, unsecurity, unhappiness with employees. So this low-hanging fruit is on the strategic side, from my point of view. And the operational side, it's kind of more the hard grinding, slow adaptation, step-by-step kind of thing. And that's why I'm a little bit surprised that I don't see that more often yet. But therefore, this is one of the topics I'm very keen to talk about, and to make people aware of these possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as we sort of come towards the end as well, I mean, we discussed before, a lot of these topics we talked about today are going to keep advancing, keep evolving, and the conversations you're having with different customers, you mentioned E.ON before, and there's going to be more and more, there's much more we're going to be able to talk about. But I guess for today, Peter, just to, as we usually do, as you know, we sort of try and round things off with some sort of takeaway. So I guess I don't want to put words into your mouth. So if you're looking to implement this sort of technology, what would be your sort of three areas or 5 areas, or however many areas you think people should think about first of all before they get started?
Yeah, so look at assistants instead of agents. Kind of to have this start, which is more a cooperation and instead of a competition between the AI and the human being. I think assistants are very strong in that area and can be implemented very successful. Look at the strategic side of things, the reasoning models, the new ones. They provide so much possibilities for immediate value if you have any kind of program in front of you, or if you want to look at cultural developments. And I think training, I mean, the EU AI Act anyway says everybody who is now engaged with some AI needs to do training. And you can do it like in a way, kind of an online training. I have a check in my box. I did the training, or my employees did the training. All done, or you can take it seriously, that they really learn how to solve their problems, like with such a promptathon, and really use that, because the EU AI Act can be considered like another of those administrative burdens, but the content is actually makes sense. So just use the transparency which is required. Just do it, and also use AI to solve your problems. Because also, what is the EU AI Act? Well, ask the AI. What should I do about it? Ask the AI. It's can help in so many ways. You just need to get used to using it in your daily work all the time.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's the key, and it's something I can, on a personal level, I can attest to as well. I'm still dipping my toe in the water, but seeing some really good results, both work professionally and outside of work as well. But yeah, no, for today, I think that's been really great. We've covered a lot, and of course, Peter will be back on again soon to continue a lot of these topics as well. So I'd highly recommend you listen to some of our previous episodes as well. We talked about the 8P framework, which I think we might look at in future episodes and break that down a little bit. But the last episode we did together, we talked about that in a bit more detail too. But yeah, for today, thank you, Peter, for your time and expertise and sharing that with the listeners. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening. And see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to be back. Bye-bye.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.